Good morning, Wabash. Wow, that was cool. Speaking today at Chapel is the Malcolm X Institute of Black Studies with their talk titled Celebrations, For Us, By Us. In this talk, Kenny Coleman will give a brief introduction. Then, MXI members Katherine Johnson and Jackson Clayborne will have the members share an important black historical figure that they studied. This will be an interactive Chapel talk. So, speaking first is Katherine Johnson, Jr. He's a psychology major and a black studies minor who grew up on the west side of Indianapolis. He's a member of the Wabash golf team, chairman of the Malcolm X Institute of Black Studies, a senior peer advisor, and an avid music listener. Alan's hobbies include hanging out with family and friends and eating food. Alan plans to go into education and help the next generation after Wabash. Speaking next is Kenny Coleman. He's a senior from Muncie, Indiana, where he graduated from Muncie Central High School. Kenny is majoring in rhetoric and minoring in black studies. A fun fact about Kenny is that when he was in first grade, he was given an award for reading the most books in his elementary school. Kenny's favorite thing about Wabash is being able to have candid conversations with the faculty and staff across campus. Finally, Jackson Clayborne. He's a senior from Springfield, Ohio, majoring in economics. Jackson served as the vice chairman of the MXI and as a member of the football team. After graduation, Jackson plans to start working and move to Florida with his fiancée, Ellie. So please give a warm welcome to Alan, Kenny, and Jackson.
Good morning, Wabash. I am the descendant of fearless freedom fighters who forged a pathway for my people and created opportunities by overcoming adversity with optimism and a prolific spirit. I am the product of pain mixed with pride, passion fueled by defeat, and hard times fought with happiness. Black History Month is important to me because I can be unapologetically black. I do this anyway, but it's during Black History Month that I can be unapologetically black and unapologetically tell you about different events that took place during this great month. For instance, Frederick Douglass's birthday, or Carter G. Woodson coming up with what would now be called Black History Month. Joe Frazier getting back up and becoming heavyweight champion of the world. And lastly, Bernard Harris Jr. becoming the first black man to walk in space. Black people have been through a whole lot, but Black History Month serves as a reminder that while the war will forever be present, the end is near if we continue to fight the battle the other 11 months of the year. Over time, we have trudged through the deepest valleys of despair just to say that we are people, just like everyone else. We are still here. We have fought back tears and fought against our oppressors. We are still here. We have created change in spite of conflict and opportunities in spite of oppression. We are still here. We have claimed that our black is beautiful and that I am proud to be a black man. Not because it sounds cool, but because sometimes that's all we can do to keep from having a mental breakdown. In times of tribulation, I am reminded that I hail from a land of royalty. My people were brought here as involuntary visitors and slaves, but here I stand victorious. At this chapel, we will take the opportunity to educate you about lesser-known figures in black history. From this, we expect you to develop an interest and take the initiative to find out more about lesser-known figures in black history. So, would you please open your ears, accept what's being talked about, and do not leave in the same intellectual state that you came here in. With that being said, we welcome you to our celebrations, for us, by us.
Good morning, Wabash. Today I'll be introducing two prominent black figures from history. Before doing that, I want to share two things. The first is a definition of Black History Month that resonates with me. Black History Month is the appreciation and acknowledgement of blackness and how it permeates throughout all aspects of our lives. It is also a chance to honor the ones who have come before us and acknowledge the work still to be done. I'll repeat that one more time. Black History Month is the appreciation and acknowledgement of blackness and how it permeates throughout all aspects of our lives. It is also a chance to honor the ones who have come before us and acknowledge the work still to be done. The second thing I would like to share is that I was not always aware of important figures of black history. These two figures that I'll be speaking and sharing with you about today I want to give thanks to Malik Barnes for finding them and sending them to the Malcolm X so we can educate ourselves. I share this to acknowledge the work that all of us need to do in terms of learning more about our history. One of the activities I do during Black History Month is looking back on where I was intellectually a year ago today and seeing how much I've grown in my knowledge of Black history. For I have not always known about important parts of our history, whether it be Black Wall Street and the Tulsa Race Massacre, or the history of the Sambo lawn jockey that Dr. Westfield shared with me when I had the chance to meet and discuss with her for the first time a few months ago. A lot of my understanding has come in the last 4 years at Wabash, a lot of it from joining the Malcolm X Institute of Black Studies, and from participating in events as such throughout Black History Month, and especially throughout the year. It's really easy to educate yourselves, for the information is readily available and at your fingertips with your phones, computers. I learned about Jessica Harris, a New York Times bestselling author, educator, and culinary historian via a podcast while driving down the road the other day. Jessica has done amazing work documenting the foods and foodways of the African diaspora in our society today, and it literally took 30 to 45 minutes of clicking on a podcast to add that knowledge to my vault. There is no excuse, for we must acknowledge the work that is still to be done. But given that, I want to thank everyone who's here today because you're dedicating your time and taking the initiative to celebrate Black History Month with us. Given that, the first prominent individual that we are going to celebrate today is John Cuffey. As you can see in this picture here, John Cuffey was born free on Cuttyhunk Island, Massachusetts, sometime around 1759. He was the youngest of 10 children. Cuffey refused to be the name Slocum, which his father had been given by his owner, and instead took his father's first name. Cuffey became politically active in his early 20s. In 1780, against the backdrop of the American Revolution, Cuffey led a group of free blacks to petition the Massachusetts government either to give African Americans and Native Americans voting rights or to cease taxing them. Although the petition failed to sway the Massachusetts General Court, the campaign exposed the hypocrisy of America and helped pave the way for creation of a new constitution in 1783, which granted equality to all Massachusetts citizens. Cuffey was a devout and evangelical Quaker who early on developed a reputation as a philanthropist. He donated the funds to create the first integrated school in his hometown of Westport, Massachusetts. A staunch opponent of slavery and the slave trade, he united with other emancipated African Americans in the northern states in their abolitionist campaigns. Cuffey, first a whaling ship captain, eventually became a ship owner, operating a number of vessels which sailed between ports along the coast of Massachusetts. By 1811, he was reportedly the wealthiest African American in the United States and the largest employer of free African Americans. Despite his commercial success, Cuffey believed the creation of an independent African nation led by returnees from the United States offered the best prospects for free blacks and for African modernization. Inspired by British abolitionists who had established Sierra Leone, Cuffey began to recruit blacks to immigrate the fledgling colony. On January 2, 1811, he launched his first expedition to Sierra Leone. He led 38 African American colonists to Sierra Leone. The colonists established new homes integrated into the small community of former English residents and refugees from Nova Scotia. Paul Cuffey died on September 7, 1817. John Cuffey, today we celebrate you. The next individual that we will be honoring today is William Alexander Lidosorf. Lidosorf was a social, economic, and political force in pre-gold rush San Francisco. California, with a number of firsts credited to his name, when he named the U.S. vice consul to Mexico in 1845, he became the nation's first African-American diplomat. He was elected to San Francisco's first city council, its first school board. He built the first hotel, the first shipping warehouse. He operated the first steamboat on San Francisco Bay, and he laid out the first horse track in California. Born on the island of St. Croix in 1810, William was the son of Danish sugar planter Alexander Vladisdorf and Anna Marie Sparks. In 1841, he sailed his 106-ton schooner, Julia Ann, around Cape Horn to California and settled in the Mexican village of Yerba Buena on San Francisco Bay. He was known as the first African-American millionaire. His house, which held the city's first flower garden, is now the place of the Bank of America Tower in San Francisco. He died in 1848, and he was given the honor of being buried inside Mission Dolores Church, where his gravestone may still be seen today. William Vladisdorf, today we celebrate you. With that, I will pass it back to Mr. Kenny Coleman.
The next figure that we will be talking to you about is Malcolm X. As some of you may know, Malcolm X was one of the most significant figures within the American Black nationalist movement. Many of the ideas he articulated, like race pride and self-defense, became ideological mainstays of the Black Power movement that emerged in the 1960s and 70s. X emerged as the principal spokesman of the Nation of Islam during the 1950s and early 1960s. He organized temples, founded a newspaper, and led Temple No. 7 in New York City's Harlem. Elijah Muhammad appointed him the national representative of Islam, the second most powerful position in the nation. Despite the preconceived idea that Malcolm X was pro-hate and pro-violence, we must remember that he was an advocate for his people and for peace amongst all. We must remember this message he tried to convey when he passionately said, "I am not a racist. I am against every form of racism and segregation and every form of discrimination. I believe in human beings and that all human beings should be respected as such, regardless of their color. On this day, Malcolm X, we celebrate you." The next figure that I will be talking about is Katherine Johnson, born in 1918, died in 2020. A native of White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia, Katherine Johnson was the mathematician, dang, these words are killing me. Katherine Johnson was the mathematician that computed the equations that describe orbital spaceflight and those that sync the lunar module from Project Apollo with the command and service module that orbited the moon. Her work is featured in the film Hidden Figures. Johnson's career with NASA was a whopping 33 years long, yet she was unknown for her contribution to her field. She was also the first Black woman admitted to West Virginia University in 1939. Johnson lived to see 101 years old and passed away in 2021. Katherine Johnson, on this day, we celebrate you. With that, I will pass it to Alan Johnson.
Good morning, Wabash. I like that. Stephen Smith was a Pennsylvanian African-American who contributed large amounts of his wealth in effort to abolish slavery. After purchasing his freedom, Smith had big plans ahead of him, and in the same year of 1816, Smith opened up his own lumber business in Columbia, Pennsylvania. Smith would be very successful in the lumber business and look for partners to grow his business even bigger. In the early 1830s, Smith formed a partnership with William Whipper. Smith and Whipper would have huge success in the lumber, coal, and Philadelphia real estate, railroad cars, and investments in the stock markets. Smith would make a big fortune with all the money Smith put in to good use and became a true leader in the Black community in the efforts to fight slavery. In 1830, Smith was the chairman of the African American Abolitionist Organization in the town of Columbia, Pennsylvania. Word got out of Smith's success, of course, and many people grew jealous and felt the need to send Smith a message. In 1835, a group of unknown people, vandalized the office of Smith and destroyed all of his papers and records. This incident motivated Smith to abolish more slaves and more in that area. Smith would acquire a small hall in the area where African Americans would hold meetings. Smith would also help the local underground railroad that would run through Maryland and provide help all the way to Canada. After the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850, Whipper and Smith persuaded 15,000 African Americans to make their way to have a new start in Canada. After so many years of helping out slaves escape in his local community to have more rights in the eyes of the government, Smith eventually died in 1873 of unknown causes. But he remains a hero in Black history and in American history. So on this day, we celebrate Stephen Smith. Gladys West, also known as Gladys Mae Brown, was born October 27, 1930, in Sutherland, Virginia. She was an American mathematician known for her work contributing to the development of the Global Positioning System, also known as the GPS. Gladys Mae Brown was born in rural Virginia, where her parents owned a small farm in an area populated mostly by sharecroppers. Growing up, when not in school, she spent most of her time helping to harvest crops on her family farm an occupation she knew many of her peers would continue into adulthood. In her community, the only clear options for a young black girl's future were continuing to farm or working on a tobacco processing plant. But at school, her talent for learning offered another path. As valedictorian of her high school graduating class, Gladys received a full scholarship to Virginia State College, now Virginia State University, the historically black college where she earned a degree in mathematics in 1952. She later returned for her master's degree in the subject, graduating in 1955 after spending time teaching math in racially segregated Virginia schools and after applying for a series of jobs in Virginia segregated state government where they insisted that they were instead awarded to white men. In 1978, West was named project manager of CSAT, an experimental U.S. ocean surveillance satellite designed to provide data on a wide array of oceanographic conditions and features, including wave height, water temperature, currents, winds, icebergs, and coastal characteristics. It was the first project to demonstrate that satellites could be used to observe useful oceanographic data. This beautiful black woman is what I would call a hero. Like NASA mathematicians Katherine Johnson, Dorothy Vaughan, and Mary Jackson, West is often called one of the history's hidden figures. In 2018, West was formally recognized for her contribution to the development of GPS by the Virginia General Assembly. That same year, she was also inducted in the Air Force Space and Missile Pioneers Hall of Fame and named one of the British Broadcasting Corporation 100 Women of 2018, a list designed to honor inspiring women worldwide. For that, thank you, Gladys West, and today we celebrate you. As we have discussed 6 individuals who we celebrate today, the Lilly Library will have an exhibit open to all students, faculty, and staff that will show off these 6 individuals, plus 33 other amazing black figures in our history. Please do yourself a favor and check it out. As we talk about the approaches we take to become better leaders and celebrate our blackness and our black culture, let us not forget that change comes with being uncomfortable. To bring about change, you must not be afraid to take the first step. We will fail when we fail to try, said Rosa Parks. When it comes to all the changes that we have seen in history of America, let's understand that none of them came without being uncomfortable. For example, here at Wabash College, John W. Evans became the first black man to graduate from this prestigious university. I guarantee it took a lot of heart, it took a lot of prayer, and I guarantee he was pretty damn uncomfortable. But he did it. I was inspired to deliver this part of the speech after I watched the movie 12 Years a Slave this past weekend. This movie goes in depth about a slave named Solomon Northup. He was a free man sold into slavery who was in a very uncomfortable situation. But how did he get out? He remained uncomfortable until he spoke with a man he met on his plantation that would eventually lead him back to the comfort of his own home. As the word gets thrown around, a word that gets thrown around a lot is a revolution. A revolution is a forcible overthrow of a government or social order in favor of a new system. But today, I want to propose a revolution here at Wabash College. And no, I do not mean to overthrow the systems put in place to admit students or academic qualities of the university. So, sorry, administration. Let's build a revolution in our minds. Overthrow our thoughts of selfishness, bigotry, hate, racism, and all other forms of discrimination. A revolution is step outside of our comfort zones. A comfort zone that makes us scared to take a class about culture that might not be ours. So the next time your advisor asks, yes, you want to take that Black Studies class, and yes, you want to take that Gender Studies class. The next time you don't want to go to that talk, or your frat brothers or GDI brothers don't want to go to that talk, yes, you do want to go to that talk. yes, you do want to go to that event. The next time you find somebody discriminating someone else, yes, you will stand up. Yes, you will say something. Be the Wabash man that you say you are supposed to be cultivating yourself as. Take the initiative and start the revolution, and maybe, just maybe, will we be one step closer to actually celebrating our Black history together. Thank you, and God bless.